Okay, so this next part is going to get a little confusing, and that's okay. But I want you to at least try it. But what I would do is save your file like it is right now. File, increment, and save. That way you have a version of this. Because it's possible to just animate directly onto these joints. There's nothing wrong with that. But sometimes often your rigs are going to get much more complicated. And when they do, you're going to want controls for this. And so I want to show you, as more of a bonus video, how you could set up the controls for this rig. And it's not going to work the same way we did with these previous controls, although we are going to use NURBS curve. So we'll go back to our curves, circle, go ahead and scale that up. And we're going to make one of these for each of these joints. Okay, so I'm going to, we're going to name this one, I'm going to name them after the joints, root, CTRL. Then I'm going to duplicate it, Control D, and I'll do spine 1, CTRL. Duplicate it, Control D, spine 2, CTRL. And then I don't need one for head end, but I do need one for head. Control D, head. Oops, sorry. Head, CTRL. So, I want to get all these positioned, and then I want to freeze their transformations. So to position these, again, I do the control, then spine 1. So it's, okay, modify, match transformations, translation. Spine 2, modify, match transformations, translation. Go backwards again. Spine 2. Let's open this up here, so do it, match translations. And then head, match translations. And what you'll see with this is these have terrible numbers on them now, right? So all of these look terrible. I'm going to highlight all of these, modify, freeze transformations. So now all of that's much cleaner. But I don't want to start dragging stuff out of the hierarchy. If I do that, we're going to, if I try to drag spine 2 under spine 2, it messes up my joint chain. And so I don't want to do that. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to build a similar hierarchy with these joints. Okay? So if I drag spine 1 onto root and release it, now spine 1 is under root, and so we just have this very nice hierarchy that I can build this way and get the same hierarchy. Okay? Now why that's important is because if I rotate root, now all of these are going to go with it. If I rotate this, all of these are going to go with it, down the line, right? Okay. So we have all of that ready, and instead of parenting these, we're going to use a parent constraint. Now I'll briefly explain to you what a parent constraint is. A parent constraint, let's just make 2 objects here so I can show you. A parent, so if I get a sphere, scale that up, and a cube. So if I were to parent cube under sphere, I'm changing the hierarchy, right? But by doing that, sphere now can control cube, and cube can move on its own or rotate on its own, right? So that's how the hierarchies work. But again, what if I couldn't change this hierarchy, but I still wanted that result? That's what a constraint is for. So this is going to be under rigging. I think it's also under animation, if I'm not mistaken. Constraint, yeah. And it works the same way. If I choose sphere, cube, constrain, parent, now the hierarchy is the same. The only difference is cube now has this parent constraint node underneath it. And it works the same, that I can adjust the sphere and the cube goes with it. So that's essentially what we're doing. Now there are some complications with this, in that the cube now has some stuff controlling the translates and rotates, but that's not really for this project. We'll talk about more of that in the future of how to fix that. that's not really going to cause us problems here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose root on my control, root on my joint, constrain, and then parent. And I'm going to do this all the way down. Spine, spine, parent, spine 2, parent, yes. And then head, head, parent. And so what's happening now is this joint is now being controlled by these controls, which means I can actually go in here and just hide these joints. Okay, just turn on, hit 0, and now I can animate just these controls to get the animation on this axe. And recognize we can animate these controls together. Right? If I grabbed all 3 of these like I just did and rotated up and down, I get this really kind of nice transition on this. Okay. Last thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and put these 2 pieces of mesh in their own layer, add selected objects, and then axe layer. So next week we will be animating this axe, and I'm going to go ahead and freeze this just to show you I did that. I did that so now I can do this to select all of those controls and animate them. Right. So next week we'll be animating the axe in one of the future modules here, and some additional things as well.